Live.
Hey, how's it going?
Hello. Thank you all for joining today. As the title suggests, this is a live stream in celebration of reaching 50 videos. So if you look on the channel, it'll say like 53 or 54 because we've done some live streams. But the Jamaican Maroon video that we released was actually the 50th video that we've made since we started the channel in 2018, 50th history videos, that is. All right, so I wanted to just jump right into it. We'll let some people get online here, but I do have the, what we got here? So we have the presentation that I've made up for this. I wonder if you guys can guess every single episode here. Some of them are a little bit more recent, but 8 different episodes there. Just as a bit of warning for the way this is going to work, no warning, but just laying down the layout of today. We're going to have a rough agenda. Basically, I have some sense of what we're going to do, some things to talk about, some interesting things to share with you, and then I have some questions for you. Throughout the show, I encourage you all to submit questions. The only stipulation is you're free to suggest video topics, but the questions that I'm going to engage with are going to be the ones that are not video request topics, simply because if we're keeping the discussion going, I kind of want to have something to talk about other than, I've oh yes, maybe I'll do that in the future or something like that. But yes, I do. I appreciate the super chats coming in. Thank you guys so much. If you do a super chat, I'm more likely to recognize the question being asked. But let's jump into it. The first order of events here is I just had to mention a bit of sad news for the Turkey trip. So obviously, you guys know a ton of uncertainty, unrest going on in roughly that region, not so much Turkey. There were some tumultuous protests there about a week ago. I think 60 people injured. My impression still is Turkey is a pretty safe place to go to, and I really want to go there. But we hadn't sold enough tickets. There are travel advisories against bordering countries and certain parts of Turkey from the U.S. State Department, and because of that, us trying to sell even more tickets than we already had, with sort of the impression of the region at the moment, we're gonna basically, I'll say cancel, but I actually want to say postpone. I really want to go to Turkey. I've heard great things about it. I've seen so many amazing things to go visit there. So instead, though, so that won't be happening in June anymore. Basically, what we need to do is pick a different destination. I'm not sure where it will be. The place that I have right here is the one that was like second in voting. It was tied for second. It was Mongolia, and nobody else who runs these trips ever gets Mongolia in their top 3. But I think I know why you guys like Mongols. We like Mongols. It's a key feature of the channel. So I think it would be really cool to go there. If you want to make your opinion known on where we should go, whether you want Mongolia or some other place, and bear in mind there's some price differences here. If you're choosing Italy, which is like a very classic, exactly, if you love history, you can go to Italy, France, Germany. You almost know what you're going to see there, which doesn't make it any less cool. It's going to be awesome, but that tends to be a lot more expensive than someplace like Mongolia. So all the prices we adjusted to the operating costs. So you can, there's a link right in the description. I want you to stay on the live stream, but if you want to open that in another tab and just give me your thoughts on one place you'd want to go. If it's Mongolia, vote for Mongolia. The trip that they have set out, you're staying in yurts for some of it, and there's a Mongolian throat singing festival, lots of other really, really cool things. So I think that would be a really cool trip. But go check it out. Click the link, open it in a new tab, and let me know what you think. Like I said, I will be answering some questions, non video request questions as we're going through this. If you're doing a super chat, I do thank you. I am reading it. But if it's a more general question that we can expound on with a discussion, that's what I'm going to give priority to. Okay. This was just something cool. I thought, Joe's done some really cool art of Mongolia. So when you're looking at the trip, it's like, it looks exactly like that, except without Karakorum or the massive Mongol capitals today.
Yeah, and if we go on this Mongolia trip, I mean, I'd have a lot of inspiration if we ever. I mean, we will pick up the Mongols again, but I know Chris has thrown around the idea of something more like the origins of the Mongols, where we can kind of immerse ourselves in the culture and stuff, and maybe a lengthy video on that.
You could do the rise of Genghis Khan, and I would do multiple videos on that. And one thing I feel like with our Mongol videos is that we've gotten a good sense for them conquering, which is the big aspect of why we care about the Mongol Empire. But I would like to have a series that kind of sits with the Mongols and what do we know about what they believed, what was the family structure like, but also those early conquests in there, and almost just getting to immerse yourself in that culture. Because I think a lot of our videos, one of my favorite things about the Mongols is that they're reaching so many different cultures that you wind up having these really cool cultural clashes. But that comes at the expense of being able to sit with one of those cultures and learn a lot about it. So I would like to do that. If it is booked, it would be somewhere in 2024, probably late 2024. But yeah, let's go. All right. So someone sidestepping the video request rule and saying, okay, what if situation? I don't know why you think I'm very qualified to answer this. What do you think would happen if the Vikings landed in the Yucatan and encountered the Mayans? Oh, like much earlier? Well, it's interesting because I think, you kind of saw with our Chinese contact, Ming Dynasty contact with that East African coast, other powers didn't necessarily have the same way of conquering or colonizing a place. That wasn't the set out way that that all empires have worked. A lot of times people want to exact tribute, or the Vikings a lot of times would raid some place and then basically it was like a tribute or a ransom payment of don't attack me the following year and I'll pay you this much. I don't know. I don't know
play
if
out similar to how their contact in North America, initial trades, and
and I don't know that they would have had the structure to manage a transatlantic empire, or that they would have been much interested in it. But there is evidence that I think it's from timber archaeological evidence that the Vikings in Greenland, after that initial journey around 1000 AD to what was called Vinland, somewhere in North America, continental North America, there is evidence that they kept going back to get certain products. I think a lot of it was wood logging. So, beyond what we have in the sagas and some archaeological evidence, it's pretty probable that more Vikings, or people, if you want to be more specific about it, more Scandinavians of the time came in contact with some Native Americans. Let's see. Another question here. Are you drawn more to recent or older history, and how far back do you see yourself potentially going and covering a piece of history? I think we would say the big appeal for history for me is we kind of like jumping around and being able to say um, there's a universality to history. So you can be as engrossed in a 1970s mob saga as you would in ancient Indian saga of the Gupta Empire. So I think that's a big appeal to me. I wouldn't say that there's a super strong bias in either way, recent or older history. I kind of feel like Joe, you like more of the ancient stuff because there's a greater sense of bringing something to life.
Works better with, yeah, and it works better with my art style. Whereas like when we were doing something like Polyakov or the Mob, I get to do less art, and the art I do is kind of more like, I don't know, urban in a way, like a lot of cities and stuff. That's I don't really get that elegance that you get with a lot of more ancient and classical time periods.
Yeah, I had an idea to do a video on Babylon, which you
Oh
sort of
yeah.
you look up depictions of what we know Babylon looked like at the time, and that is extremely ancient. It was the biggest city in the world at the time, and that would be very cool. I think for us to just have something you feel like you're bringing something to life. Similar with the Gupta Empire, there weren't many depictions of the Gupta Empire, or there were some that were extremely inaccurate that were on YouTube or just if you search on Google Images. So it felt kind of gratifying to go through the research and be able to say, okay, this is the most likely way that this looked and be able to show people and let them sit with that. I would say that the trade off is that with more recent history, you tend to have just better records. And so you can have a more personal, almost gripping story where you can connect with a few characters. Ancient history, just generally speaking, not always the case, but ancient history, those people are kind of hidden in a way behind. You won't necessarily get their firsthand account or um, their reference. Like a lot of the Gupta rulers are referenced in the inscription in a pillar or an epic poem, and so it becomes a tool in archaeology to try to dig out and parse out what those people were like at the time, rather than if I do like Native American history, 19th century, there's going to be long passages of people's impressions of other people and how they acted and things like that. Um, all right. What do you think of the Huns and the mass Gothic migrations they triggered, which was pivotal to the fall of Rome? Yeah, there's a lot of interesting history about that and the degree to which those Hunnic people were related, the people that were invading India versus Rome. But I think the common thinking is that they do have a common ancestry and probably had common language and habits. And it is pretty interesting because you hear Romans, or you can read Roman sources refer to these people around India as Huns and the people right on their borders as Huns. Okay, so I wanted to jump into here a little bit. So keep the questions coming, non-video request questions. Uh, can you tell that there was supposed to be something else on this slide, a picture or something to look at? But this was just the introduction to the Jamaica section. So I hope you guys all had a chance to watch the Jamaican Maroon video. That is the 50th video that we've made. This one, I just thought this was cool. Partway through, I was like, Joe, we need a painting for this one scene. And I think you were getting ready to edit or something.
Yeah, I
And
didn't want to make this because whenever like Chris comes to me and is like, "Ugh, we need a painting. This is like a big moment and we don't have anything." I'm like, "Ugh, crap, I'm ready to get into this video and just start editing, and now I have to put away half my day and work on this." But yeah.
Yeah, I think, and so I was like, it was one of those scenes where it's like, Joe, this is going to be way worse if we can't show anything here, because this is the big. If you've seen the video, this is the British are trying to storm Nanny Town with 400 troops, and the Maroons are sort of hiding in the woods, and they come out from behind rocks and trees and start firing at them, and they ambush those front lines, which are sailors. Um, and then those sailors apparently end up running back to the more regular British troops, and they're telling them that everybody got massacred. And I didn't even mention this in the video, but it was kind of a cool tidbit. Those sailors started to destroy their own supplies, and they started just getting extremely paranoid. They destroyed all of their own supplies, like threw out their ammo and stuff like that. And that was because they were so averse to staying in the woods and waging guerrilla warfare against the Maroons that they wanted to make sure that there was no excuse for their officers to keep them in the forest and keep fighting these people. So their excuse would be, we don't have any food or water, so we have to leave. But anyway, so I drew this up. I was like, Joe was like, well, what would it even look like? And I was like, I always tell him it won't be that hard. It's just quick. You do this. But then he turned it into this in the video, which was pretty cool. And that was,
I decided it needed like a little tweaking. So
yeah. And as I said, those first troops that were being ambushed, those front lines, kind of, it didn't make a whole lot of sense, but they had the sailors go first instead of the British regular troops. And so these uniforms are more reflective of what they would have been wearing versus what the redcoats would have been wearing, which are redcoats. The other one, yeah, I didn't even tell you I was going to put this one in, Joe, but Nanny Town. So a lot of the stuff in Nanny Town, that is that maroon dwelling up in the mountains. That's up in the Blue Mountains of Jamaica. I think they think there might have been 300 plus people in it at max. I think the entire Windward band in that side of the island, they thought it was around 500 plus. But I just sort of sketched this really crappy thing, and I was like, okay, so there's going to be some peaks in the background. You can see there's huts, some trees and stuff like that. And for every video I've shown this before, but I put together these enormous lists. So this is the outline, and each one of these is linked in Google Docs, so Joe can click on these. But it goes specific enough to here are the 3 or 4 different styles of lodging that the Maroons would have based on what I was able to find in my research. Then there's British buildings. What did their normal buildings look like? What did a plantation estate look like? What did the slave quarters off to the side look like? And then the ports, Kingston, Port Royal, everything down to the difference between the militia or the British troops or the English troops in 1650s versus another time, the spears that they would have used. And so when I gave Joe this drawing for a Nanny Town, it came with this section. A lot of them were mud brick huts. They also use wood. But if you look up traditional villages in Ghana, those huts look very similar because over 50% of the Maroons at that time period would have come from people in present day Ghana. So they preserved a lot of those traditions and language in a way that a lot of the enslaved population was not able to. And then he turned it into this, which was really cool. Thank you for the kind words on the Maroon video. Okay. Big, very general question from Rich B. What's the biggest thing you've learned so far with this channel in general or history related? I don't know, Joe, do you have a good answer for that?
Biggest thing, that's a tough one. It's kind of vague too. Like, what would you classify as like the biggest thing? I guess like the most profound thing is there is like we've talked in the past, you know, you can kind of find human patterns throughout history. That's very, despite different cultures and stuff, everyone usually has the same flaws and often the same virtues as well, which is a very humanizing aspect too. That we all essentially can fall victim to the same things. Um,
Yeah,
I
I
guess
would
that's one
say.
takeaway.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I feel like a big lesson that I've learned through all the research and almost consciously trying to pick different, very disparate topics, is that so many of the stories play out in a very, very similar way. So
Mm,
that's why I say I don't really have I don't have a 100% favorite period in history or a preference one way or the other. I like certain aspects artistically or aesthetically or based on the records that we have of a certain time period. But I feel like in any age you get people that are looking out for the well-being of themselves and their families in a way that I know a lot of our stuff can seem extremely dark or brutal, but um, most people in history are operating on the same basic precepts of, uh, you know, you're not going to treat, if you look through any culture, you're not going to treat your enemies very nicely. That's basically your history. No matter who you are, people have not treated their enemies very nicely and have shown very little mercy to them. And then, right down to sort of the core ways that they operate in the world or the rules for society. It basically ends up just becoming something that is, I think, hopeful in a way because you see we actually have common ground in a lot of respects. So if there's any subtle takeaway from the videos, I'd kind of like people to be able to say, "Oh, I can actually." You find inspiration in a bunch of different stories, and you find something noble to admire
yeah.
and something um, nasty to admonish in any single period I go to, in any single country, um, any time frame. You're going to see those same stories playing out in a way that I think is just really interesting. A couple interesting tidbits I wanted to share, and feel free to keep these questions coming. Um, One, if you guys saw the Sam Bellamy one, I don't know why it hasn't taken off. I thought it was a good one in terms of the pirate topic, which has done well for us in the past. Let me know if I should change the thumbnail. But um, the Witta Galley, so that's the ship that Sam Bellamy takes in 1717. It's the big ship. Was a slave ship, so it's named for Witta, the port in present-day Benin, um, where they were picking up and buying a lot of their slaves. But those slave ships would go along the coast of West Africa and purchase. Most of them would be private traders that would purchase as many slaves as they could in one port and then go to another port until they fill up the hull. So those slaves that were that were below decks were actually forced to stay there for months while they filled up the hull of the ship with other people. Um, he takes it in 1717, right after that ship had gone to Jamaica and sold all of their slaves there, and they were coming back with a bunch of wealth from that. Um, but because of that, 1717, the Maroon Wars were kind of being waged this entire time since the 1650s. Then they really ratcheted up in the 1720s. But it is completely conceivable that people that were on that pirate ship from the previous episode wound up becoming Maroons and fighting in the Maroon Wars. Um, and if they didn't, then they absolutely would have known who the Maroons are. They would have known about Nanny and Cudjoe. And I just thought that was really cool. I love looking at stuff like that and just going, oh, this is happening at the same time as this. Um, and we have a lot of episodes like that. I feel like we've done a ton of episodes. I was just telling you, Joe, that are kind of like late 1700s, early 1800s.
Yeah, there's a lot going on during that time.
Like our Haida video, starts
Hawaii.
at that time. Yep, the Kamehameha. There's Simon Metcalf is involved with Kamehameha.
You have Dumas.
Yep. Dumas, Napoleon. Kamehameha sends a message to the British king in acknowledgement of what's happening with Napoleon. And then he was asking for more guns and stuff and said, I would send you some soldiers if I could. And then our Osage one just started around there. I do have some, I didn't put it in the presentation for this video, but I do have some really interesting facts to share about the Osage. If you guys have seen Killers of the Flower Moon, I think I'll put it in a short and just put some interesting facts, that really tiny details that I appreciated that were in the video, that if I hadn't done all the research for the Osage one, I wouldn't have caught. But things that they don't even necessarily call out, and that a normal, if you hadn't studied the Osage, you wouldn't catch it. But it's really cool. So yeah, let's. The other one I thought was really cool was. This is an aspect in a number of our topics, but our videos are short, so I try to sort of expedite how the story is told, and it kind of needs to stay on track. And there are some things that I'm like, oh, that's really cool. I don't know if I can fit it in this, or it would sidetrack it. Psychological warfare is a big one. There was some psychological warfare. The Mongols always used it. One of the really cool things that I saw or that I came across in the Mamluk versus Mongol video research was that there was an official named Al Zain, who was an official under the Ayyubids. And before Hulagu had come to Syria to conquer it, he actually was secretly working with the Mongols, in the sense that he wanted them to take over. A lot of these people do this both to completely secure their own position, but also because you don't want the city you live in to be completely massacred. So it's sort of in your, if you have the desire to switch sides, it's in the interest of the city for you to make sure the Mongols take it without any resistance. After the Battle of Ain Jalut, you have, as I show in the video, that there's so much left. There are a number of YouTube channels or people that online that popularly depict Ain Jalut as the last moment, and that's where the Mongols break. It's not true. There's ongoing wars all the time. There's raids going both ways for decades and decades. And of course, it's the Mongol infighting that sort of renders them incapable of responding. But so this official was still serving the Mongols after the Battle of Ain Jalut. Baybars knows this, and he sends messages to Al Zain that make it seem like Al Zain is working for the Mamluks and he's actually not loyal to the Mongols, because he knows that the Mongols recruiting this person who used to work for this other empire would have some suspicion. Al Zain has to go to Hulagu to apologize and basically says this is not true. It's fake. And then the next one, Baybar sends another one that he makes sure is captured. The letter is intercepted, and Hulagu gets it before it ever goes to Al Zain. And Hulagu, that's the second time that he's had enough with the suspicion. So he executes Al Zain and all of his family, which is like, Al Zain was innocent. He wasn't working for the Mamluks, but that was one of the cool things I thought. Like I was trying to get across how capable of a commander Baybars was, but there's always more stuff to mention. There was another cool detail of him. I think after a peace with the Crusaders, a truce, he went and toward the city of Acre or Accra. And I think it was said that he took note of all the defenses of the city. So even though they were at truce, he took note of it. And then even after he died, that information was used for a later siege over a decade later by the Mamluks. So just a shrewd commander. Simon says, not a video, but I have a playlist request. A playlist of all your videos in historical order would be really cool to binge. Yeah, the one I have thought about trying to order it. The problem is that they start and end at certain times. So like the
Yeah.
Osage, is the Osage in 1803 or 1804 video, or is it a a 1925 video? But there is a way that you could probably organize them in roughly chronological order. And I actually do that with the playlist that we have now. So the verses and duels and the Mongol playlist that we have, I go back and I make sure that those are in as much chronological order as possible. So there is a way to watch it and try to make sense of it all. But it'd be cool to have a chart.
Simon also asked about mythology. And I know we've talked about that in the past, Chris, covering something more like, I think you wanted to do something on ancient Egyptian mythology, and it would allow us to kind of, play with a bit of surrealism as well, because we can kind of immerse ourselves in what would the people at the time have imagined this place to be like the Duat or something. And actually, for me, it'd be interesting because if you look at a lot of my artwork on my ArtStation and stuff, I actually started out primarily as like a fantasy concept artist. So it allowed me to kind of flex some of those skills.
Yeah. Yeah, the Egyptian afterlife was an idea. I think you were looking into like Viking mythology and sorcery and stuff like that
Yeah, I think we
recently.
talked recently about doing something on Viking sorcery and witchcraft and a lot of their beliefs surrounding magic and stuff, because it's very, very interesting, and it's not a lot of people know about some of those traditions and where they inherited them from. So that'd be something to look into.
Yeah, and I think we actually did a tiny amount of it in the Harold Hardrada series
With the
because
dream, you
there's
mean?
some dream that somebody has of like a witch on the back of a wolf
Yeah.
foretelling the destruction of Harold if he pursues this conquest of England, and he does anyway. But
Yeah, that might be the closest to fantasy art in any of our videos, is something like that.
yeah, but I don't know if you guys have ideas on how we would do that. Would you want a pure mythology video or something that is historical, but when we're explaining the religion or mythological compendium that underlies a culture, we actually just depict that? All right. Somebody asked about the Harlem Hellfighters in World War One. That is actually in the potential topics list. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, the couple ones that are not, I should confess, they're not upcoming, but ones that I really want to do and that I know that we'll get to eventually are Civil War, World War One, and something South American or Mesoamerican. So we get a lot of requests for the Aztecs, which I think artistically would be really
Yeah,
cool.
that'd be really cool.
But also the Incan. I feel like we see fewer depictions of Incan architecture or the Incan
Yeah.
Empire at its height. Um, I did actually have a good topic for that. We almost went with it. Um, so if you're a member of the Patreon, the $6 tier and up can vote on upcoming topics. And I had one. There was one related to South America and the Amazon, and I think it just very narrowly lost out to Jamaica, um, which I was fine with. The Jamaica one was awesome, but we will get to that eventually. So if you're worried we haven't covered Aztec or Incan or Civil War, we will get to it because I don't know. I just think bringing that to life would be very cool. Somebody said that they prefer the second option. I forget, was the second option, I think the second option for the
Yeah, it
incorporation
was
of
like
mythology,
historically based.
historical, but we show it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you'll notice we actually have there is a bit of a structure to a number of the videos where we'll have like an overview section. I usually don't like to start with that, but we'll usually start with something a little bit more gripping where you're introduced to a character or some suspense that's coming, a coming battle or a battle, and then we'll move on from there and actually have a little bit of explanation. Who are the Osage people? Who are what is the Gupta Empire? Something like that. And those are usually the chill sections. Like Joe changes the music to be a little bit more dreamy, I guess,
Yeah.
because it's just historical information at that point. But we try to still infuse an artistic beauty into it. But I think that there's a way that you could do a video that was more centered on the religious beliefs of a people and
Yeah, and
sit with that
maybe
a little bit more.
and how that motivates them to behave a certain way or take actions. Like I think we did that kind of with the Zulu. Well, we talked about their beliefs about releasing the soul of their
Yeah.
enemies, and I didn't really make art for that, but I think I did some motion graphics that would kind of like imply like a soul escaping a body. So we could do something more like that where we really get a view, like a sympathetic view as to like what type of mindset are they in that would compel these people to do these things.
Yeah. Um, I try to do that with a lot of the Native American ones too. I feel
Yeah,
like, um, and partially I do that because I think there's a tendency for people to view Native American as there's one thing that it means to be Native American. And I kind of want to be able to introduce people to actually each one of these tribes is distinct. A lot of them do have similarities in beliefs and language. But even in school, to the extent that we would learn about Native Americans in school, even an acknowledgement of the reservation system or other hardships that they faced, it seemed very rare that we would get any sense of what made a Sioux person different than Iroquois uh, uh, member. So,
yeah,
that's I would like to keep covering Native American topics on the channel just because I feel like it's so unexplored. And I don't know, there is some sense of, and I feel like our comments are a little bit better, but you see a lot like on a lot of these channels, you just see this desire for people to cover topics, the creator to cover topics that the people already know about. So you should cover this. You should, tell me what I already know about the Battle of Midway or something. But I do think it's kind of cool to just give you guys something that maybe you've never heard about or something you've heard referenced. And you'll get messages from people say, I've lived in Oklahoma my whole life and I never knew anything about the Osage. Or you get people from that specific country. We had a lot of comments from people from Jamaica. We had comments from people who were part of the Osage. So yeah. All right. So the next item on the agenda is actually, I wanted to ask you guys some questions. All right. So just put it in the chat. What is your favorite episode? If you want to show your work and tell me why it's your favorite episode,
we'll share ours too.
yeah, go ahead. We'll see if it lines up. Let me think. I think I know my favorite episode.
Mine. I'm pretty sure mine is as far as like making it and actually my enjoyment of it, if I take those two factors in, is the Harold Hardrada saga. just because I really love doing the art, and I just really love his entire. I think someone put it right in one of our comments, or in a chat or something, said that like the video felt like a Bannerlord campaign, whereas like here you start from nothing, you're ousted from your lands, and then he builds an army in this completely foreign empire, and then he returns and becomes king. That to me, I just like kind of like that hero's journey, but he's also at the same time there's a bit of a duality because he ends up becoming a very brutal and villainous figure himself.
Yeah, I thought the Hardrada. I might have changed my answer, but I
And the
was going to
music for
say,
that, I loved working with all these different artists that specialize in kind of Norse and Viking music and being able to talk to them about using their stuff. So I really loved working with those people.
yeah, I thought that one was it was kind of cool too because he almost becomes monstrous when he's taken the throne. And so up until that point, he's the underdog. Go take your throne. Then he takes the throne. You're like, oh my god,
Yeah,
jeez. Like,
it's a
so
very Game of Thrones type poetic nature to that.
yeah. In terms of the story, that one was a good one. I think that the probably the most gratifying story, the most complete story is Thomas Alexander Dumas.
Yeah.
Stilicho is sort of an earlier style. I'm seeing some answers for Stilicho. Um, the Mongol ones I'm seeing,
Oh yeah.
of course, the Mongol is like it's kind of cool because you kind of just go full blood pumping, like just it's almost it's historical, but in a way it's over the top. You have license to just be like, this is supposed to be kind of disturbing, but also impressive in a way, extraordinary in the sense of the scale of it all. Um, I still think mine might still be the Plains American Indians. That one was extremely hard for me to research, just on an
Yeah.
emotional perspective. But I felt like we just
It's a
part of the
tone that
idea
we were
with
able to
that.
capture. Yeah.
Yeah,
We were able to, I felt like we gave it a very somber but also respectful tone.
yeah. We have the Comanche attack here. Um, Yeah, that one
Oh
was a
yeah.
shorter one, but we have intentions to go back and do some more Comanche.
Yeah.
But I
For
think,
sure.
yeah, the Plains American Indian ones, it almost felt in a way like there's a lot. It's extremely violent, but by the end of it, you're just exhausted. But that's sort of the goal. You should almost
Yeah.
be like disturbed by it. And then I thought your art was really nice, and I kind of like the way that it wrapped up with the music and stuff.
Out of all of our videos, it has the most, I think, like apocalyptic feel to it throughout the entire video. That something is coming to an end here.
Yeah. The Gallo Glass one, yeah,
Hourglass.
we actually get a
Yeah.
lot of love for the Gallo Glass one in a way that surprised me because it's so short. It's like 6 or 7 minutes or something. Um, but it makes me think we should do some more Irish history.
Yeah.
We're both a quarter Irish, actually, so a quarter Filipino and Polish. And, uh, there's some British in there, I think, but um, last name is Feely, so we do have some Irish roots. And I've been thinking about doing Brian Boru. I think just the art for Ireland is always going to be really cool. And if we can do some more of those castles in those huge green expanses, that's a really cool tone. Um, Rasvan saying basically what we were saying, Harold Hardrada and Thomas Alexander Dumas, that's sort of like somebody's entire life and a really exceptional life.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, we get a lot of requests for Belisarius, Dumas.
We're not quite done with the Napoleonic era yet.
Oh right, all right. I don't want to elaborate too much, but we got some good stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, more Irish history. Do a video on the Irish Jamaicans. That would be pretty interesting. I think we referenced it a little bit in the. I don't know if we were. I think we referenced it in the Easter Rising one, but the Irish that were forcibly deported by Cromwell. to become indentured servants abroad, and extremely harsh and sometimes fatal working conditions. Yeah, very, very interesting stuff. The next one, what do you think is? It feels weird for us to answer, but maybe we can still answer. But what do you think? Is there any history dose video that you think is underrated? This one should have more views.
Mine has to be. I really feel like it just should have taken off, but it didn't. Was the what's the title of it? The Nazi bomb video. What's the title of that video?
I don't know. We've changed it a bunch of times to
Yeah,
try to get it to take off, but
that was fun to make,
the
and it was
Norwegian mission.
it was a more, it's more modern history relative to the stuff we typically cover, and I felt like we did a good job with that tense tone and that. I even tried to design the soundtrack to kind of be like Dunkirk a little bit, where there's always this tone of tension underneath.
Yeah, we got
So
somebody who also can't remember the name of the video,
yeah,
but that's what they said. Marvel and the Cold War one. I think Polyakov did get a little bit more, or no, you might be referencing the same one because it's about the Cold War. Yeah, that one never took off. That one was a completely different style. It was more sort of like Joe and I had the idea to go back to our traditional style, but now that he was better at editing and our microphone was better and I was better at narrating,
yeah,
um,
video essays.
yeah, it could be we could just go almost like prove that we could still do that at a high level, but
Yeah,
I don't think our subscribers wanted it.
let's say Sam Bellamy as far as recent ones. I mean,
Yeah.
it's has a good amount of views, but it's not quite viral.
Yeah, and then we had Harold Hardada never took off. I don't even know if this part one has over 200,000 views.
Boudica never
Um,
took off either, right?
yeah, I thought Boudica. Yeah, I really expected Boudica to
Yeah,
take off, and it was actually. Uh, I partially blame YouTube because they have a research tab that says what does your audience want to watch? And I had been wanting to do a Roman topic for a while because we hadn't since Stilicho. But it was like your audience wants Rome. If there's one thing, they want Rome. And I was like, okay. And then a lot of our verses videos have taken off. So I was like, okay, well, if I do verses and I do Rome, 2 million views. And I think we're coming up on like 200,000, which, a couple of years ago would be pretty respectable for us. But I'm just a little bit puzzled that it hasn't taken off. So we'll see. There's always time. Sometimes this kind of content can just really blow up at random times. Rosvan said Aryan Atlantis is severely underrated. It's a very old one. It's probably
yeah,
like the third or fourth video we made.
something like that.
Either he or his teacher used it in the history class. All right. One that's not underrated, I think, is our Christmas, the ban on Christmas. Just the audio is so bad in that, and we had some problem with the microphone where we would have like a pop sound. We had
Yeah, there's
like a
that,
different microphone.
and the
It was like,
spiritualism one. Just like
yeah,
the audio was incredibly low on that.
yeah. And
I
if
mean,
you go
those were our
back through a
first few
catalog,
episodes.
it's a completely different style. We have a clip from Nathan for You in the spiritualism one, which I don't know if a Nathan for You clip would have a place in our kind of content now. Uh, there's no Nathan Fielder in the Osage
Yeah,
video. Yep. So let me see here. Boudica Caney revolting. I don't think it was significant. Well, it puts Nero on it caught him off guard, and I don't know if you could say that it was ever going to be a completely successful revolt, but what you have to remember that wars are always about not necessarily who can win in terms of pure manpower, but when is it worth it to win it? Was it worth it for the British to keep fighting the American Revolution, or the United States to keep fighting in Vietnam? even if you end up being stronger, you could cause enough destruction to get people to pull out, and it can actually change history in that way. Okay. Birthday versus Hulagu would be an amazing video. Yeah, I've been thinking about going more. We could do some more into that. I guess there's 3 different directions we could go with the Mongols. We could do more on that Mongol infighting, which takes place right after the Mamluk video, and we reference it there. We could do the rise of Genghis Khan and almost stay in Mongolia and China for those, which I think would be really cool, and that would be its own series. And then the other thing was doing Tamerlane.
Yeah,
and it's sort of Mongol to the extent that I consider it Mongol. Just know that Timur considered himself a Mongol and wanted everybody to know that he is the second coming of Genghis Khan and stuff. So I think it would be really cool. But there's no those aren't mutually exclusive. It would just be what comes first. I want to do all of those eventually. Okay. All right. So I think I have another question here. Oh yeah, I have another question after this. Dream topic. I feel like you guys have been giving me your dream topic in the chat the whole time, but is there one that you should really bring this up? And while I'm doing this, let's bring up a couple of these super chats. Yeah, I can look into some of these battles that are coming up. Oh, I did answer this one actually. I don't know everything, but I'm always interested in looking into them. I do actually, when you submit suggestions, especially if they get upvotes or if you send it by email, I will actually look into it. The Jamaican Maroon one was something that I had only known a tiny bit. I only knew a tiny bit about the Maroons before doing the video. I had heard them reference possible connections with pirates. There's some record of Henry Morgan. So Henry Morgan, after his buccaneering days, becomes a plantation owner in Jamaica and I believe the governor of Jamaica. And he wages some wars on the Maroons and apparently found some success, but not enough to dislodge them. And yeah, I think the other interesting thing where the Maroons come up is Sir Francis Drake, when he robs the big Spanish caravan going across I think it's present day Mexico, or it might be Panama, but the people who help him navigate the forest or jungle of that region to go attack the Spanish caravan and take all of their silver and gold are Maroons, escaped slaves that lived in the jungle. And I think he pays them off with something. He gives them a cut of the loot. Let's see, King Philip's War. Yeah, I really want to do that. Yeah. We've been thinking about doing some because we're actually up in Maine.
Yeah, which is where the northern theater of that war was fought.
So I don't know. I feel like there's so much stuff in the United States that people almost think that their states are uninteresting. And you actually go back and you look, and there's so much Native American history or associated things in in all of these different regions that, like I said, you can sort of make any period of history come alive and be interesting because it's the same stories going on and on.
Like when we were
might be on a different scale, but yeah.
When we were looking up stuff on it's called the Abenaki Wars, was like King Philip's War, but in the New England area. Just seeing like the massacre of like so-and-so town, and we're like, oh wow, we like drive by that every day.
Yeah, no, and you guys might have seen the community post of the Bellamy's shipmate Paul's Grave Williams was actually docked off the coast of Maine, which had been completely obliterated in the course of those different wars with France and their Native American allies. So yeah, I think the painting that he used was a beach that we have gone to since we've grown up. Because
Yeah.
when I was doing the research, I said, okay, they said he docked between Cape Elizabeth and this island, and I was like, where's this island? I was like, wait, that's that beach.
Yeah,
Which
like
was
we
really,
were
really
looking
cool.
out at the site where you would have seen his ship docked, like since we
Yeah.
were children.
We got a request for Polish history. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
we're a quarter Polish as well, so I definitely want to do some Polish history. There's going to be a lot of violence and heartbreak in there, which always makes good for compelling stories. At least the Polish Haitians. Yeah, I think they would factor into a Haitian Revolution video if I ever
Yeah.
do that, which I plan to. That one has to. I don't know. That one is going to be extremely violent too, but it's I referenced the Haitian Revolution a little bit with the Jamaican video, but that one I feel like I definitely should do because I don't think people appreciate. Um, Not to say you guys don't, but maybe the broader general population appreciates how momentous the Haitian Revolution is and the impact that it has on everything around it. It's very easy for us to just sort of think of it as American Revolution, French Revolution, and that now these ideas are in sort of the culture. But um, I was reading as I was doing the research for the Jamaican Maroon one. There were people, anti-abolitionists, so like pro-slavery advocates prior to the American Civil War that were bringing up the massacre of white people on Haiti, the French people on Haiti after the Haitian Revolution, as an excuse not to free the slaves, because they said that this would happen if we actually abolished slavery, which was just it sort of speaks to how impactful that was, because then you have 60 years later not only bringing up the Haitian Revolution and the things that happened around it, but being able to talk about that and have everybody recognize what it is, so that means it's in the public consciousness of a completely different country, well after the fact. So very interesting. Would love to do some Ethiopia. The early Christian kingdoms are really, really interesting, and I feel like probably not covered enough. Let's see if we got any cool ones here. Yep, I want to do Simon Bolivar. The Latin American independence movements, I feel like, are extremely influential, in the same vein as the Haitian Revolution, where it's a momentous global event, which probably doesn't get covered in most history classes, actually. Exiled Eastern European pilots who fought with the RAF in the Battle of Britain. Be cool. Look into it. Let's do a couple more, and then I do have one last question for you guys. Darwin's trip to the Galapagos would be really cool. Percy Fawcett. Percy Fawcett is that would be very fun, and the art would be really cool. Him finding those things.
Yeah, whenever I see these topics, I immediately my head just starts going like, okay, what would the art look like? That'd be a fun one.
Yeah, got the Latin Empire there. Okay, the last one was an idea that I've had about these live streams. I think it went really well having Jack Meister on before. That was really interesting for us, and I felt like the conversation flowed. You guys didn't even see, but once we ended the stream, this whole video chat keeps going. So he was on there, and we were
for
just
another
saying
hour,
thank you to
hour
him.
and a half.
Yeah, it was like over an hour and a half where we're just like, yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, well, thank you. And both of us were like always on the edge of wrapping up, but then we'd bring up something else and it would lead into another tangent from one of us, and it was an awesome conversation. And so it was actually probably like over 3 hours of talking to Jack Meister, But so my question to you, I'd love to have Jack Meister on again at some point. But are there any live stream guests, other history creators, or maybe could even be a professor or a scholar that you guys would like to see come on, and then we talk to them? I have had ideas of doing a podcast in the future, but this would almost be like an intermediary thing. We're having a live stream, we're talking, we're hanging out, and you guys will be able to interact with whoever's on as a guest. So I have some people in mind, but I don't want to say their names just in case they don't want to do it. Then it would look pretty bad. Okay. So
Tunche Films, Told in Stone, Trey the Explainer.
Yeah, if they want to get in touch. But yeah, I'm happy to talk to anybody, even people that I generally disagree with. I'm always in favor of just having people on, and we'll have a chat.
It will give you guys a chance to ask them questions too if they're an expert, say on Roman history or something.
Voice of the Past, we know pretty well. Pete Kelly. Okay.
Love to have them on.
But yeah, I think those would be pretty interesting podcasts. I could reach out to them. Some of these people, I have a better way of getting in touch with them than a normal email. Some of the people I don't. But yeah, we've had a couple of comments on prehistoric history. I do actually have one that's sort of a prehistoric topic. It's almost like anthropological, and I don't want to give it away, but I did reach out to another history creator, possibly about helping or a collab. So I'll keep you guys posted on that. Even if they don't want to do it, I might just go ahead and do it myself. But I would like to. I think it would be really cool to try to tackle prehistoric history, because some of the reason why I want to do the Civil War and actually the video that's coming up is almost a completely. It's our same style, but it's a completely different format than we've done before. What I'll just say is that it's like it's a new challenge to present something else.
Yeah, it's going to be revisiting a time period that we've already touched on before.
But I think prehistoric history, it would be cool to try to bring some element of storytelling and world building with my writing and your art to a time period where we have no written record. But how much ambiance, how much immersion can you actually give to a story that's told 50,000 years ago or
the farthest back
15,000 years ago
was when I did the painting of the mammoths in the Viking versus Native American video.
Oh yeah.
But it would be interesting to go farther back than that.
Got a request for Otzi. Yeah. I mean, and the balance will always be. I can never stand when history writers just inject complete like fiction into it. Like, it's one thing if you come out and say that I'm inventing this. We don't know what the emperor thought at this point, but if there's any room for interpretation, you kind of need to make it known that, well, actually, you don't know if Napoleon was sweating as he looked across the troops or something like that. So that would be the balance for the prehistoric. But there are some things that you can talk about with certainty. You can describe the climate with a certain level of certainty, or the animals that are around, or the way that they lived and hunted and stuff like that. So that would be really cool. Somebody said, my family are Maroons. Awesome. I hope you liked the video. always astounds me the reach you can have, that we can basically make a topic on anything. Haida Gwaii is a very tiny island off the coast of Canada, and it's just, you get comments from people who are Haida.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you guys for the suggestions on who to bring on. I think we're going to wrap up here. I hope you had a fun time on the celebration of 50 episodes. We got a mention
thank you.
of make videos on Columbus, his life journey. Yeah, I think I would love to do that at some point too.
Here's to the next 50.
Yeah, I know. I almost was like, can you do 50? Should you wait till 100? But our stuff takes so long that I don't want to wait to do 100. Let me just
it'll be
celebrate
like 4
50.
or 5 years till we get to 100.
Yeah. You know, and so, and some of it is like once it's big enough that our videos are a little bit more like guaranteed views, and you kind of have a nice income coming in, you have enough subscriber support or Patreon support, then you can even focus on maybe some of the videos are less frequent, but you go all in and you can put out like a 45-minute video or an hour long plus video. So some of those topics, when we get a suggestion to do Alexander the Great, for example, or a complete Napoleon saga, I would feel so bad if I gave you a 10-minute or 15-minute video for that. Those are the ones where I'm like, it would at least have to be like Harold Hardrada length, which is 2 parts and 40 minutes plus. So yeah, I would like to just make sure that we give enough. We have enough of sort of a head start on our production, and we give enough space to actually do those justice. Because if you're doing Alexander the Great, there's so many different battles you want to cover, and you want to make sure the art is on point, and you have, 60 different paintings for it, and you want to make it. You want to give it your best shot so that there's a chance it could be your best video ever.
Yeah. Well, I think Alexander the Great would be upwards of 100 paintings, because usually it's about 30 paintings for about a 15-minute episode. And I would imagine Alexander the Great would be an hour or longer if we were to tackle that.
Yeah. Okay. So the last thing, just like I said, the trip is coming up sometime in 2024. Just check the video description right below, or depending on what format you're using, the description might be on the right side of me. But yeah, so we need a new destination. It looks like it will be Mongolia. I think that would be really, really cool. But if you have strong feelings on another one, go vote for another one, or go vote for Mongolia. But that would be sometime in 2024, we would go on this trip. So all of the information we get is really important. So just click on that link in the description. Just let us know what you think in terms of where we should go. Okay. All right. Until the next stream, I think maybe the next stream we'll try to bring somebody on. I'll try to get a guest on and bring some new people in. There'll be more of an appeal if it's not just us. But okay. Until later. Bye, guys.
All right. See you guys.